The shot had to be perfect. Sergeant Cade Brennan pressed her cheek against the stock of her M40A5 rifle, feeling the familiar weight of expectation settle into her bones. 1,800 meters downrange through the shimmering heat of the Afghan valley, a man was about to die. The only question was whether she would be the one to kill him or whether doubt would kill her first. 3 seconds. That's all she had. 3 seconds to prove that 18 years of living in her father's shadow had been worth something. 3 seconds to show Colonel Garrett Hawk that his decision to bring her here wasn't the mistake everyone whispered it was. The wind shifted, 12 knots gusting to 15. Her spotter, Sergeant Wyatt Sterling, breathed the correction into her ear, but Cade was already adjusting. Some things you don't think about anymore. Some things become instinct written into muscle memory by 10,000 hours of practice, and the ghost of a man who died believing excellence was the only language worth speaking. But that shot, that impossible career-defining shot, was still days away. This story begins 3 months earlier, when Cade Brennan was still trying to prove she belonged anywhere at all. The guard at the gate looked at her twice, once when she showed her orders and again when he read the name. "Brennan," he said. "Any relation to Captain Declan Brennan?" Cade kept her face neutral. She'd learned that trick early. "My father." The guard's expression changed. Something between respect and pity, the look people give to the children of legends. He waved her through without another word. Camp Lejeune stretched out before her in the late summer heat. Red brick buildings and white concrete, the smell of gun oil and cut grass, the distant crack of rifle fire from the ranges. Somewhere on this base 18 years ago, her father had walked these same paths, had breathed this same air, had become the kind of Marine people still talked about in hushed reverent tones. And then he'd gone to Fallujah and come home in a flag-draped box. Cade was 9 years old when they handed her mother that flag. 27 years old now, and she could still remember the way the fabric felt heavy and crisp, folded into perfect triangles, smelling faintly of starch and finality. The way her mother's hands had trembled. The way young Cade had refused to cry because crying was for people who gave up, and Brennan's didn't give up. Her father's journal, the one she'd found in the attic 8 years later, had said as much. Excellence is the only answer to doubt. When they question you, let your results speak. She was here to let her results speak. The reconnaissance sniper platoon headquarters sat at the eastern edge of the base, a low building that looked like every other low building except for the men walking in and out of it. They moved differently, more awareness, more control. These were the ones who'd seen things and done things, and learned to carry the weight without showing it. Inside, the air conditioning hit like a wall. Cade reported to the duty desk, was pointed down a hallway, and found herself outside an office with a nameplate that read, Colonel G. Hawk, commanding. She knocked twice. Enter. Colonel Garrett Hawk was 48 years old, though he looked older in the right light and younger in the wrong one. 6 feet of weathered, lean, muscle gray hair, cut military short eyes the color of winter sky. He'd been a Navy SEAL for 22 years before transferring to Marine Special Operations. 187 confirmed kills across Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star. The kind of service record that made younger Marines whisper legends in the barracks. He looked up from his paperwork and studied her, with an expression that gave away nothing. Sergeant Brennan, take a seat. Cade sat, kept her spine straight, hands on her knees, eyes forward. Hawk set down his pen. I knew your father. It wasn't a question. It was a statement dropped between them like a stone into still water, sending ripples in every direction. Yes, sir, Cade said. Declan Brennan was the best Marine sniper I ever served with. Sharp mind, steady hand, unshakable nerve. Fallujah, 2004 to 2006. He saved my life twice. Once from an IED, once from my own stupidity. Hawk's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You've got enormous boots to fill, Sergeant. I hope you're ready for that. I am, sir. We'll see. He pushed a file across the desk. Your scores from Scout Sniper School are excellent. Top 5% in marksmanship, top 10 in land navigation and fieldcraft. Instructor notes indicate strong discipline and focus. He paused. They also indicate a tendency toward isolation. You don't make friends easily. I'm not here to make friends, sir. No. Hawk leaned back in his chair. You're here because your father's name opened a door. Now you have to prove you can walk through it without embarrassing his memory. Understood. The words landed like a slap. Cade felt heat rise in her chest, but she swallowed it down. Understood, sir. Good. Report to the team room at 0600 tomorrow. Dismissed. Cade stood, saluted, turned for the door. Sergeant, she stopped. Don't take it personally, Hawk said. His voice had shifted, still hard, but with something underneath. Everyone here is judged by the same standard. Your father set that standard very high. It's not your fault, but it is your problem. The team room the next morning held 4 other Marines. 3 men, 1 woman. They looked up when Cade entered, sized her up in the way soldiers do, quick, comprehensive, brutal in its honesty. The first to speak was Sergeant Finn Maddox, 31 years old, broad-shouldered and red-haired with a face that looked like it had argued with several walls and lost. He'd been in reconnaissance for 6 years, 3 deployments, 37 confirmed kills. He leaned against the wall with his arms crossed and his jaw set. You're Brennan, he said, flat, no warmth. That's right. Heard you got top scores at sniper school. Must be nice having a famous last name to smooth the path. Cade met his eyes. My scores speak for themselves. Scores on a controlled range are one thing. Afghanistan is another. Maddox pushed off the wall. Last female recruit washed out in week 2. Before that, the one lasted a month. Saved us all a lot of trouble when they quit. I won't quit. That's what they all say. The second Marine, younger and quieter, cleared his throat. I'm Sergeant Wyatt Sterling, comms and spotting. He had dark hair and darker eyes, a lean build that suggested endurance over power. Scottish heritage by the look of him. He offered a cautious nod. Don't mind Maddox. He's suspicious of everyone. Not everyone, Maddox said. Just people who haven't earned their place yet. The third Marine, a woman, stepped forward. Corporal Sloane Garrett, 25, with blonde hair pulled back tight and a face that could have been carved from granite. She'd been in the unit for 3 years. 14 confirmed kills. She looked at Cade with the expression of someone examining a threat. Your father was Captain Declan Brennan, Garrett said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Must be a lot of pressure living up to a legend. Garrett's smile didn't reach her eyes. Fair warning, your father's reputation won't pull any triggers for you. Out here, you succeed on your own merit or you fail on your own. There's no inheritance in this job. I don't want an inheritance, Cade said quietly. I want to earn my place. Good. Garrett turned away. Because we'll make damn sure you do. The fourth Marine said nothing. He sat in the corner reading a manual on advanced ballistics, occasionally glancing up with an expression of mild curiosity. Staff Sergeant Lucas Webb, 34, medic and logistics. He'd seen more combat than all of them combined and had the scars to prove it, though he wore them quietly. The door opened. Colonel Hawk entered and the room snapped to attention. At ease. Hawk looked them over. You all know why Sergeant Brennan is here. She's qualified. She's been cleared for deployment. Starting today, she's part of this team. He let that settle. Anyone have a problem with that silence? The kind of silence that speaks louder than words. Outstanding. Hawk's voice carried the edge of someone who wouldn't tolerate dissent, even if it existed. Brennan, you'll be evaluated over the next 3 weeks. Physical endurance, marksmanship under stress, field craft, decision-making under pressure. You'll be held to the same standard as everyone else. No more, no less. His eyes found hers. If you can't hack it, you'll be reassigned. Clear? Crystal, sir. Good. First evaluation starts at 0800. 15-mile forced march full kit. Try to keep up. The forced march was designed to break people. 80 pounds of gear in 98-degree heat, moving fast enough to test cardiovascular limits, but slow enough that you couldn't just sprint through it. 15 miles of North Carolina terrain, hills and gullies, stretches of sand that sucked at your boot, sections of dense pine forest where the air hung thick and still. Cade started strong. She'd trained for this, had run every morning before sunrise, loaded pack getting heavier each week, pushing until her legs screamed and her lungs burned and her mind went quiet with exhaustion. This was familiar territory. By mile 7, the pack felt like it weighed twice what it had at the start. Sweat soaked through her uniform. Her shoulders ached where the straps dug in. She kept her breathing steady in through the nose, out through the mouth, find the rhythm and hold it. Maddox was 20 yards ahead, setting a brutal pace. Sterling matched him step for step. Garrett had fallen back slightly but still looked strong. Webb moved with the steady mechanical efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times and would do it 1,000 more. Cade pushed through mile 8, mile 9. Her vision started to tunnel at the edges, but she fought it back. Pain was just information. Discomfort was just noise. Keep moving, one foot in front of the other. By mile 12, two things became clear. First, she was going to finish. Maybe not first, but she would finish. Second, finishing in the middle of the pack wouldn't be enough. Not for these people. Not with her father's name hanging over her, like a standard she'd never asked to carry but couldn't put down. She found something extra, some reserve she didn't know she had. Pushed her pace, closed the gap to Sterling, then Maddox. Her lungs felt like torn leather, her legs like concrete, but she pushed. Mile 15. The finish line came into view. Hawk stood there with a stopwatch and a clipboard and an expression that gave away nothing. Maddox crossed first, Sterling second. Cade crossed third, 11 seconds behind Sterling, 3 minutes ahead of Garrett. She wanted to collapse, wanted to fall to her knees and gasp for air and let the world spin. Instead, she stood at attention, chest heaving, and met Hawk's eyes. "Time," she asked. 2 hours, 41 minutes. Acceptable. Hawk made a note on his clipboard. "You've got conditioning. Let's see if you can shoot." The range that afternoon was for precision work. 800 meters, stationary targets, control conditions. This was supposed to be easy. This was supposed to be the part where Kate excelled. But her hands were shaking, not from fear, from exhaustion, from the forced march still echoing in her muscles, from the weight of her father's memory and Hawk's expectations, and the way Maddox watched her like he was waiting for failure. First shot, 6 inches left of center, within acceptable parameters but not excellent. Second shot, 4 inches high, still acceptable, still not excellent. Third shot, miss. The bullet struck dirt 2 feet right of target. Cade closed her eyes, breathed, opened them, fired again, miss, and again. Hit but 8 inches low. She was falling apart. The precision that had carried her through sniper school, the steady hand and quiet mind, all of it fragmenting under pressure and exhaustion and the terrible weight of needing to be perfect. 9 shots, 6 hits within acceptable parameters. 3 complete misses. Maddox, shooting in the lane beside her, scored 10 for 10. Dead center every time. When the range master called time, Cade stood there, with her rifle still shouldered, staring down range at the target that proved she wasn't good enough. Hawk appeared at her elbow. "Brennan, my office. 1,800 hours." She found the rifle range that evening after the day's training ended. The base had mostly emptied out Marines in the chow hall or the barracks living the routines that made garrison life bearable. Cade shouldered her personal rifle and set up at the 600-meter line. She needed to shoot, needed to find the silence again. The first shot felt wrong, too much tension in her shoulders. She adjusted, breathed, fired again. Better. Not perfect, but better. Third shot, fourth, fifth. Finding the rhythm, the quiet place where thought disappeared and only instinct remained. "Your stance is compromised." Cade spun. An old man stood 10 feet away, tall, weathered, with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. He wore civilian clothes, but he moved like military. Walked like someone who'd spent 50 years learning how to be dangerous and didn't need to prove it anymore. "You're overcompensating for right-eye dominance," he continued. His voice was rough but precise. "Pushing your right shoulder forward to align your dominant eye, which throws off your natural point of aim. Works fine under ideal conditions. Falls apart under stress." Cade lowered her rifle. "Who are you?" "Master Sergeant Reed Ashford, retired, civilian contractor now. I run advanced sniper training here." He moved closer, studied her with the kind of attention that suggested he was reading more than just her stance. "You're Brennan's daughter." Not a question. "That's right. I trained your father, back in 1999 when he was just a boot with good eyes and no idea what he was doing." Ashford's expression didn't change, but something in his voice softened. turned him into one of the best snipers I ever trained, before or since. Cade felt that familiar weight settle back onto her shoulders. Everyone knew him. Everyone knows legends. Very few people knew the man. Ashford gestured toward the range. Take another shot. Show me what you've got. She wanted to refuse, wanted to tell him she didn't need another critic, another person measuring her against a standard she'd never asked for. But something in his voice, the lack of judgment maybe, or the way he'd said, the man instead of the legend, made her raise the rifle again. She breathed, adjusted her stance the way she'd been taught. Fired. The round struck 6 inches left of center. Again, Ashford said. She fired, 5 inches high. Again, 4 inches right. Stop. Ashford moved beside her. Your fundamentals are solid. Your breathing is controlled. Your trigger press is smooth. But you're still missing because you're shooting with your conscious mind. You're thinking about the shot instead of taking it. I was taught to calculate everything. Wind distance, elevation. I know what you were taught. I wrote half the manual. Ashford's voice was patient but firm. Calculation is for the setup. Once you're on target, calculation becomes interference. Your subconscious already knows what to do. You need to trust it. How? By training it until conscious thought becomes unnecessary. He studied her. I can teach you that. Off the books. 0500 every morning. Range 7. No one else needs to know. Cade lowered the rifle. Why would you do that? Ashford was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old grief. I trained your father, made him excellent. He went to war and made choices that saved lives. Another pause. I also trained my son, made him excellent too. He went to war and died trying to live up to a standard I set too high. I'm sorry, Cade said quietly. Don't be sorry. Be better. Ashford met her eyes. Your father had a gift. He knew when to take the shot and when to hold fire. That wisdom kept him alive for 2 years in Fallujah. My son had all the skill, but none of the wisdom. He died taking a shot he should have refused. March 2010, Afghanistan. Sergeant Cole Ashford, 26 years old. So why train me? Cade asked. Why risk doing to me what you did to your son? Because I need to know which method was right. The one that made your father a legend or the one that got my son killed? Ashford's expression was unreadable. Be at range 7 tomorrow morning, 0500. Or don't. Your choice. He walked away, disappearing into the darkness beyond the range lights. Cade stood alone with her rifle, thinking about fathers and sons and the weight of names that outlived the people who carried them. Tomorrow at 0500, she would be at range 7. She didn't know it yet, but that decision would change everything. The training with Ashford was brutal in ways that had nothing to do with physical hardship. Week 1 was mental discipline, meditation in absolute darkness for 30 minutes, learning to silence the constant chatter of conscious thought. Breathing exercises that seemed simple until you realized how rarely anyone actually controlled their breath. Visualization drills, seeing the target, seeing the shot, seeing success with such clarity that reality had no choice but to follow. A sniper's mind must be silent as death, Ashford said. Every thought is noise. Every doubt is interference. You need to find the space between thoughts. That's where excellence lives. Week 2 was physical extremes. Night shoots in freezing rain, the October cold settling into North Carolina like a knife. Moving target drills at dawn, mechanical deer programmed to move unpredictably, forcing snap decisions and instinctive shooting. 18-hour stretches without food, learning to shoot while the body screamed for fuel and the mind begged for rest. Comfort makes you slow, Ashford said. Hunger makes you sharp. You need to know the difference. Week 3 was advanced ballistics. Extreme distance shots, 1,200 meters, 1,300, pushing the rifle beyond its standard effective range. Wind reading without instruments, learning to feel air currents through skin and bone, to watch grass bend and dust swirl and trees lean. Bullet drop compensation across variable terrain, calculating elevation changes on the fly. And through it all, Ashford pushed. Not with anger or cruelty, but with relentless, uncompromising expectation. Your father could make a 1,300-meter shot in crosswinds, he'd say. You're his daughter. Prove the DNA stuck. On day 19, Cade made a 1350-meter shot in an 18-knot crosswind. The bullet flew for nearly 2 full seconds, arcing through the air, and struck dead center. Ashford allowed himself the faintest smile. Your father made that shot at age 24. You just did it at 27. Different paths, same destination. But that night, day 19, after 36 hours of continuous training with minimal sleep and no food, Cade collapsed. Just dropped mid-conversation, her body finally saying, enough is enough. Ashford carried her to the medical bay himself. The first time in 3 weeks he'd shown overt care instead of relentless standards. The doctor on duty was young, maybe 34, with steady hands and sharp eyes. Dr. Holden Cross, trauma surgeon, recently transferred to Camp Lejeune from Walter Reed. He took one look at Cade, dehydrated, exhausted, her body eating itself to keep going, and turned on Ashford with controlled fury. What the hell were you thinking? He demanded. Another hour and she'd be in renal failure. She's training for combat, Ashford said quietly. Combat doesn't stop because you're tired. Combat doesn't care if you die from exhaustion before you even deploy. Holden started an IV, checked her vitals, his movements precise and angry. She's staying here overnight, maybe longer. And you, he pointed at Ashford, are going to explain to me why you think killing her is acceptable training. Because dying in training is better than dying in Afghanistan. That's not a philosophy. That's a suicide pact. Cade drifted in and out of consciousness, hearing their voices like distant thunder. She felt the cool push of fluids through the IV, felt her body relaxing into something like safety. When she woke fully, it was 2 in the morning. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft beep of monitors. Holden sat in a chair beside her bed, reading a medical journal by lamplight. He looked up when she stirred. Welcome back. How long was I out? 6 hours. He set down the journal. You're severely dehydrated and nutritionally depleted. Your body was starting to cannibalize muscle tissue for energy. Another few hours and you'd have been in serious trouble. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're functional. There's a difference. Holden leaned forward. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you doing this? And don't tell me it's about serving your country. I've heard that answer from 100 Marines and it's always covering something deeper. Cade was quiet. Outside the base was dark except for scattered lights and the distant glow of the ranges. Finally, she said, My father died at 32. I'm 27. In 5 years, I'll have outlived him. And I need to know, her voice caught. I need to know if I'm worth the space I'm taking up, if his death meant something, or if it just meant I grew up without a dad. Holden studied her with those sharp, kind eyes. Your father's death meant he saved lives, including Colonel Hawk's, from what I understand. That's worth something regardless of what you do. But what if I waste it? What if I'm just his daughter, not his legacy? Then you're a person, not a monument. That's allowed. He stood, checked her IV. Some things are worth dying for, but more things are worth living for. Try to remember that. Something in his voice made her look at him more carefully. Why do you care? Because I've seen too many good people destroy themselves, trying to live up to impossible standards. He met her eyes. And because someone worth saving shouldn't go unsaved. For a moment, something hung in the air between them. Something that felt like possibility, like the beginning of something neither of them had time for. Then Holden looked away first. Get some rest. I'll check on you in the morning. He left her alone in the quiet darkness, and Cade lay there thinking about fathers and legends and the difference between dying for something and living for something. She didn't know it yet, but Holden Cross had just become important, in ways neither of them would understand until it was almost too late. The briefing room held 20 Marines. Cade's team plus supporting elements, logistics, communications, intelligence. Colonel Hawk stood at the front beside a large tactical map of Afghanistan. Operation Sentinel Dawn, he began. Duration 3 weeks. Location forward operating base. Kandahar Province. Objective elimination of high-value targets coordinating Taliban IED networks in the region. He pointed to locations on the map. Primary target is Commander Khalid Mansour. Intelligence indicates he's responsible for over 200 coalition casualties since 2020. He moves between 3 villages here, and here. protected by an estimated 40 fighters. Our mission is surveillance pattern, identification, and elimination when opportunity presents. Hawk's eyes swept the room. Team composition, I'll command and observe. Sergeant Maddox, secondary sniper. Sergeant Sterling, communications and spotting. Corporal Garrett, security and backup. Staff Sergeant Webb, medical and logistics. He paused. And Sergeant Brennan as primary sniper. The room went quiet. Maddox stood. Sir, with respect, Sergeant Brennan is unproven in combat. This is a high-risk operation requiring experienced operators. Your objection is noted and overruled, Sergeant. Hawk's voice was ice. Brennan has qualified for deployment. Are you questioning my command judgment? No, sir. Just concerned for team safety. Concern noted. Anyone else? Hawk waited. No one spoke. Outstanding. We deploy in 72 hours. Dismissed. As the others filed out, Hawk's voice stopped Cade at the door. Sergeant Brennan, my office. 2000 hours tonight. Late that evening, Cade stood outside Hawk's office, heart pounding harder than it had during the forced march. Whatever was about to happen would define everything that came next. She knocked. Enter. Hawk sat behind his desk, 2 glasses of bourbon already poured. The office was dimly lit, shadows pooling in the corners. Close the door, Brennan. Sit. She did. Hawk pushed one glass toward her. Your father and I used to drink this brand. Jameson. He said it reminded him of his grandfather. Cade left her glass untouched. I don't drink before deployments, sir. Smart. Hawk took a slow sip from his own glass. Neither did Declan. He set it down carefully. I need to tell you something. About the day your father died. About why I'm really sending you to Afghanistan. The air in the room felt suddenly heavy. Sir, June 11th, 2006, Fallujah. Hawk's voice went flat, the way voices do when people talk about things they've replayed 10,000 times. We had 2 targets. High-value insurgent commander, the man who'd been coordinating attacks on our supply convoys for 3 months, and a civilian truck driver the insurgents had captured for public execution. Standard procedure, eliminate the commander, complete the mission. Save American lives. He paused, looking not at Cade, but at something in the distance only he could see. I was your father's spotter. We'd been working together for 2 years. Perfect partnership. I confirmed the range 900 meters. Confirmed wind 6 knots left to right. Confirmed elevation. The shot was lined up. The commander was in the open. Clean. Simple. Mission complete. Hawk's jaw tightened. But Declan saw the knife at the civilian's throat. Saw the camera set up to film the execution. Saw a man about to die for propaganda. His voice dropped. He asked me what the right call was. I told him the commander was the mission. The commander was responsible for American deaths. The commander was the target. Cade's throat was tight. What did he do? He chose the civilian. Hawk met her eyes. Took the shot on the insurgent, holding the knife instead. Saved the driver's life. But that choice exposed our position. We took immediate heavy fire. I was hit in the leg, couldn't move. Your father covered my extraction. He killed 4 insurgents, getting me to safety. Then he took the rounds that were meant for me. The words hung in the air like smoke. The commander escaped, Hawk continued. That same commander killed 40 more Americans before we finally got him in 2009. 3 years later, 40 lives lost because your father chose to save 1 civilian. Cade felt something cold and heavy settle in her chest. So his choice cost American lives. His choice saved 2 lives, mine, and that driver's at the cost of his own, and 40 future casualties. Hawk's voice was barely above a whisper. Tell me, Sergeant, was it the right choice? I don't know, sir. Neither do I, and I've been asking myself that question every single day for 18 years. He pushed the deployment orders across the desk. I'm telling you this because in Afghanistan, you'll face choices with no right answers. Choices where someone dies no matter what you do. Choices where mission and morality don't align. And I need to know, can you make those choices? Can you live with the consequences the way I've had to? Cade's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs. I'll find out, sir. Yes, you will. Hawk stood. I'm not sending you to Afghanistan to prove you can shoot. Your range scores prove that. I'm sending you because I need to know if you inherited your father's judgment. If you can make the hard calls. if you're capable of the same kind of sacrifice. He walked to the window, looked out at the darkened base. Or if you're just trading on his name. Sir, I dismissed, Sergeant. We leave in 60 hours. Use them well. Cade stood saluted, walked to the door on legs that felt unsteady. Brennan, she stopped. Your father made his choice knowing the cost. He looked me in the eye afterward, bleeding out, and said, it was worth it. I've never been sure if he was right. Hawk's reflection in the window was ghostly and substantial. Maybe you'll be the one to prove it. The C-130 sat on the tarmac in pre-dawn darkness, engines already warming up. The team loaded gear in silence, rifles, ammunition, optics, communications equipment, medical supplies. Everything they'd need to survive 3 weeks in hostile territory. Cade checked her M40A5 one final time. The rifle felt like an extension of herself, now familiar and necessary. She thought about her father, had he stood on a tarmac like this, checking his weapon, thinking about the choices ahead. Brennan. She turned. Ashford stood 10 feet away, holding a small leather journal. This was your father's range book, he said. His actual data from Fallujah. Wind corrections, elevation tables, notes on every shot he took. I kept it after he died. Told myself I was preserving history. He held it out. Truth is, I couldn't let go. But you're ready for it now. Cade took the journal with hands that wanted to shake. The leather was worn smooth from years of handling the pages, stained with sand and sweat and time. She opened it to a random page. Her father's handwriting precise, careful, each letter formed with the same discipline he'd brought to everything. Range 875 min. Wind 6 kd LR. Temp 94 degree Chawara. Elevation 115 MOA. Result center mass. Note, trust the fundamentals. They won't fail if you don't. Thank you, she managed. Ashford's hand landed briefly on her shoulder. Come back, Brennan. That's all the thanks I need. Your father didn't get that chance. You take it. Sergeant Brennan. She turned. Dr. Holden Cross walked toward them, wearing civilian travel clothes and carrying a duffel bag. What are you doing here? She asked. Fob Kandahar needs a new trauma surgeon. 2-month rotation. He smiled slightly. I pulled strings. Someone's got to keep you alive out there. Cade stared at him. You transferred to Afghanistan for me. For a lot of reasons, but yes, partially for you. His expression sobered. Be careful out there, Cade. Please. I will. Promise me. Actually promise. She met his eyes and saw genuine fear there. Fear for her. I promise I'll do everything I can to come back. That's not quite the same thing, but I'll take it. He glanced at the plane. I should board. Medical personnel loads first. Holden. Don't. He held up a hand. Don't say anything you might regret. Just come back so we can have this conversation on solid ground in safety when there's time for it to mean what it should mean. He walked toward the plane, leaving her standing there, with her father's journal and a weight in her chest that had nothing to do with combat gear. The loadmaster shouted, Combat personnel, load up, wheels up in 5. Cade climbed into the C-130's belly, found her seat strapped in. The team settled around her Maddox, checking weapons for the 3rd time, Sterling testing comms equipment. Garrett staring straight ahead with a 1,000-yard stare of someone mentally preparing for war. Webb read a medical manual calm as Sunday morning. Hawk sat directly across from her. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph, handed it across the narrow space. This was taken the day before your father died. Fallujah, June 10, 2006. The photo showed 2 men in desert camouflage rifles, slung both smiling, despite the dust and exhaustion and weight of war. One was young Hawk, 28, unlined, still carrying optimism in his eyes. The other was her father at 32, the same age in this photo that Cade was now. They looked like brothers. Keep it, Hawk said. Remind yourself what you're carrying. Not just the rifle, not just the mission, but the choices that define us. The engines roared. The plane began to taxi. Cade opened her father's journal to the last entry. June 10, 2006. The day before he died. The day after the photograph was taken. Tomorrow's mission, HVT elimination. High probability of success. But I've learned something in 2 years of war. Success isn't always the mission. Sometimes it's the choice you make when mission and morality conflict. I know the right thing to do tomorrow, the hard thing, the thing that might cost everything. But I also know I'll be able to live with myself afterward, however long afterward lasts. If I don't come home, I pray whoever reads this understands I'd rather die having saved a life than live having taken one unnecessarily. Excellence isn't about the shots you make, it's about knowing which shots to take and which ones to refuse even when refusal costs everything. Declan. The plane lifted off. Through the small window, Cade watched Camp Lejeune disappear below, replaced by darkness and clouds and the long journey ahead. She closed the journal and closed her eyes, pressing it against her chest like a talisman, like a promise, like the last words of a man who'd chosen sacrifice over survival and believed it was worth the cost. Somewhere ahead, Afghanistan waited, and choices with no right answers, and the question of whether she was Declan Brennan's daughter in name only or in the ways that mattered most. The turbulence hit hard 20 minutes from landing. The plane shuddered. Tracer rounds stitched the darkness below. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, clipped and professional, despite the urgency. Ground fire. Taking evasive maneuvers. Hold on. The plane banked hard left. Cade's stomach lurched. Across from her, Maddox gripped his rifle jaw set. Sterling's eyes were closed, lips moving in what might have been prayer. Garrett sat motionless, face blank. Webb calmly secured the medical supplies that had started sliding across the floor. Hawk's voice cut through the tension. Listen up. We're coming in hot to FOB Kandahar. Expect hostile reception. When we land, move fast to the bunkers. Questions? No one spoke. Good. Hawk's eyes found Cade's across the dim cargo bay. Welcome to Afghanistan, Sergeant Brennan. Your father's war is about to become yours. The plane dropped fast engines, screaming. Cade pressed her father's journal against her chest and thought about choices and consequences in the long shadow of men who die before their daughters are old enough to understand why. The wheels hit hard. The plane skidded, corrected, rolled to a stop. The rear ramp dropped and desert heat flooded in like a physical blow, dry and brutal, carrying the smell of dust and aviation fuel. And something older. Something that had soaked into this soil for thousands of years of warfare. Move! Cade ran. Her boots hit Afghan soil for the first time, and she felt the weight of it, the history, the blood. Her father had died on ground like this. Now she was running across it, rifle in hand, trying not to become the next name carved into memorial stone. The answer was coming. She just didn't know the price yet. Mortar rounds impacted 300 meters south, the distinctive crump of explosives, then the whistle of shrapnel through air. The team made it to the bunkers as another salvo fell closer this time. Inside, Cade caught her breath. Her heart hammered. Her hands were steady muscle memory overriding adrenaline, but her mind was racing. This was real. This was war. A woman's voice cut through the chaos outside. Colonel Hawk, welcome to Forward Operating Base Kandahar. Lieutenant Colonel Diana Vance stood in the bunker entrance, silhouetted against the firelit darkness. She was 42, West Point, educated with 18 years of service etched into the lines around her eyes. She wore her authority like armor, and her skepticism like a weapon. Colonel Vance, Hawk saluted. Appreciate the warm welcome. Taliban mortar teams hit us twice weekly. You arrived on schedule. Vance's eyes moved to Cade. This is your primary sniper, Sergeant Brennan. Yes, ma'am. Vance studied her with the clinical assessment of someone who'd seen too many Marines arrive full of confidence and leave in body bags. Your father was Captain Declan Brennan. I served with him briefly in Fallujah 2005. He was exceptional. A pause. I hope you can honor that standard. Dismissed. The team was led to their quarters, a reinforced bunker 50 meters from the command center. Spartan accommodations, cots, lockers, a small table. The walls were sandbags and concrete, the ceiling corrugated metal. Home for the next 3 weeks. Cade claimed a corner cot and unpacked her gear with mechanical precision. Rifle maintenance kit, ammunition, optics. Her father's journal placed carefully under her pillow. The photo Hawk had given her, taped to the inside of her locker. 2 young men in desert camouflage smiling despite everything. One of them was her father. One of them was still alive to carry the guilt. Sterling approached, offered a canteen. First deployment. That obvious. Everyone looks like that their first night in country, like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. He took a sip from his own canteen. My father was a Marine. Desert Storm. He told me the hardest part isn't the fighting, it's the waiting, the not knowing. What did he tell you to do about it? Remember why you're here, what you're protecting. If you can answer that, the waiting becomes bearable. Sterling's voice softened. Why are you here, Brennan? Cade thought about her answer. The easy one was duty honor country. The true one was more complicated. My father died believing his choices mattered, she said finally. I need to know if mine will too. Sterling nodded slowly. That's a reason worth holding on to. He returned to his own cot. Across the bunker, Maddox and Garrett talked in low voices, deliberately excluding her. Webb organized medical supplies with the calm efficiency of someone who'd done this 100 times. Cade lay back on her cot and stared at the ceiling. Outside, the mortars had stopped. The base had gone quiet except for the distant generator hum and the closer sound of Marines settling into another night of uncertain sleep. She opened her father's journal, reading by flashlight. His words from 18 years ago, written in this same desert, under this same hostile sky. Day 47. Learned something today. Excellence isn't about perfection. It's about precision when it matters most. Anyone can shoot well on a sunny day at a controlled range. The real test is shooting well when you're terrified and exhausted, and everything depends on the next round. Cade closed the journal and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would bring the real test. She didn't know it yet, but tomorrow would also bring her first kills, and the beginning of something darker than simple warfare. The alarm at 0200 shattered what little sleep she'd managed. Mortar attack. Taliban teams had crept within range under cover of darkness and were now pounding the FOB with indirect fire. Cade grabbed her rifle and ran. No thinking, just moving. The team converged at the defensive positions along the perimeter wall, reinforced sandbag barriers topped with razor wire overlooking the valley approaches. Explosions walked across the compound. One hit the motor pool, turning a Humvee into a fireball. Another impacted near the chow hall. Shrapnel sang through the air like angry insects. Overwatch positions report, Hawk's voice on the radio calmed despite the chaos. Sterling was already setting up the spotting scope. Scanning south sector, Cade pressed her eye to her rifle scope, scanning the darkness beyond the wire. 900 meters out, she caught movement. Thermal signature. Multiple hostiles setting up mortar tubes. Contact south 950 meters, she reported. Mortar team 4 individuals. Hawk appeared beside her. You have the shot. Her heart was hammering. This wasn't training. Those were human beings in her scope, and in 30 seconds they'd launch another salvo that might kill the Marines sleeping in the barracks behind her. Brennan, I asked you a question. Yes, sir. I have the shot. Then take it. That's an order. She adjusted for wind 8 knots left to right, adjusted for elevation slight downhill angle. The mortar team was setting up their next round. The gunner bent over the tube, preparing to drop the shell. Cade's breathing slowed. The chaos around her faded. There was only the target and the shot and the choice. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked. Through the scope, she watched the gunner drop. The mortar tube fell. The other 3 Taliban fighters scrambled confused, searching for the threat they couldn't see. Hit, Sterling confirmed. Target down. Spotter breaking right, Cade said. Her crosshairs found the second man now running. She led the target, compensated for his speed fired. He fell mid-stride. Kill count 2. The remaining 2 Taliban fighters abandoned the mortar position and fled into the darkness. The attack ceased. The FOB went quiet again, except for damage control teams rushing to contain fires and treat wounded. Cade lowered her rifle. Her hands weren't shaking. Her breathing was steady. But something inside her felt different, heavier somehow. More real. Hawk's hand landed on her shoulder. Good shooting, Brennan. You just saved lives tonight. Yes, sir. How do you feel? She thought about lying, about saying she felt fine, that this was just another day at work. But Hawk's eyes that had seen too much death to tolerate dishonesty, demanded truth. I feel like I just killed 2 people, sir. Good. That's the right answer. Hawk's grip tightened briefly. The day it stops feeling like that is the day you need to go home. Understood. Yes, sir. He walked away to check on the rest of the team. Sterling packed up the spotting scope, gave her a nod that might have been respect or might have been sympathy. Maddox approached last. He stood beside her at the wall looking out at the darkness where two men had just died. That was solid shooting, he said quietly. Quick assessment, clean execution. Your father set a high bar. You just met it. Cade looked at him surprised. Thank you, Sergeant. Don't thank me yet. That was the easy part. Wait until you see their faces. He walked away, leaving her alone with her rifle and her thoughts, and the weight of two lives ended. She returned to the bunker but didn't sleep. Just lay on her cot, staring at the ceiling, replaying the shots in her mind. The way the gunner had fallen, the way the spotter had tried to run, the way her finger had squeezed the trigger with the same mechanical precision she'd used to turn a page or tie a boot. Excellence, her father had written, is about precision when it matters most. She'd been precise. 2 shots, 2 kills, lives saved. But precision didn't make it feel any less like what it was, the calculated ending of human life. Dawn came slowly. When it did, Cade was still awake, still thinking about choices and consequences, and whether her father had felt this way after his first kills. The journal didn't say. Maybe some things were too personal to write down, or maybe her father had been better at this than she was, better at killing without drowning in the weight of it. She got up, cleaned her rifle, and prepared for whatever came next. Mission briefing at 0600. The team gathered in the Tactical Operations Center, a reinforced building at the heart of the FOB, filled with computers and radios and maps covered in tactical overlays. Captain Barnes, the intelligence officer, stood at the front. He was 38, MIT educated, before joining the military with the tired eyes of someone who'd spent too many hours staring at satellite imagery and intercepted communications. Intelligence confirms high-value target commander Khalid Mansour is operating in this sector. He pointed to a map showing 3 villages spread across the valley. Mansour coordinates the IED network responsible for over 200 coalition casualties since 2020. He's careful, paranoid, moves between safe houses constantly, but we've identified a pattern. Barnes brought up surveillance photos. Every 3rd day, Mansour visits village Skin for morning prayers. He's surrounded by bodyguards, never stays in one place more than 20 minutes. But for those 20 minutes, he's vulnerable. Hawk stepped forward. We insert a surveillance team into the mountains overlooking Skin. Elevation gives us standoff distance and clear fields of fire. We watch, we wait, we confirm positive identification, and when Mansour appears, we eliminate him. Timeline, Maddox asked. Could be 3 days, could be 5. We stay in position until he shows. Hawk's eyes swept the team. This is austere living. Minimal water, no resupply, complete silence for days. Anyone not up for that can stay here. No one moved. Outstanding. We insert tonight, 2300 hours. Helicopter insertion, 8-mile approach on foot, establish hide site before dawn. Questions? Cade raised her hand. Rules of engagement, sir. Positive identification required. We need visual confirmation. It's Mansour before you take the shot. Minimize civilian casualties. Collateral damage brings political complications we don't need. Hawk's voice hardened. But make no mistake, when you have positive ID, you put him down. No hesitation. Clear. Clear, sir. Good. Gear up. We move in 17 hours. The hide site was a depression in the mountainside 1,800 meters from village Skin. They'd hiked 8 miles through darkness, moving slowly and carefully, through terrain that could hide Taliban patrols or IEDs or any of 1,000 ways to die. By the time they reached the position, Cade's uniform was soaked with sweat despite the October chill. Her legs burned. Her pack, 80 pounds of gear water ammunition, had left deep grooves in her shoulders. But they'd made it undetected. Now came the harder part. Sterling and Cade established the primary sniper position. Maddox set up 30 meters to the right as backup. Garrett pulled security. Webb organized the minimal supplies they'd brought. Hawk established the command position with communications gear. Then they waited. Hour 1. The sun rose over the valley, turning the desert gold, and then white-hot. Temperature climbed. Cade pressed her eye to the scope, scanning the village below. Mud brick buildings, narrow streets, a few civilians moving about their morning routines. Hour 6, temperature reached 110 degrees. Cade's mouth was dry, despite careful water rationing. Sweat ran into her eyes. She didn't move to wipe it away. Movement meant exposure. Exposure meant death. Hour 12. Her body screamed for relief. Her legs cramped. Her back ached. Her eyes burned from staring through the scope. But she held position, barely breathing, becoming part of the landscape. Sterling whispered corrections when the wind shifted. Otherwise, silence. Hour 18, dusk. The temperature dropped. Cade's muscles were locked, her body a single knot of tension. She'd been in this position for 18 hours with minimal movement. Her father's journal had mentioned this, the waiting, the patience, the mental discipline required to remain absolutely still while your body begged to move. Day 89, held position for 22 hours today. Thought I'd go insane. Then I realized the waiting is the job. The shooting is just punctuation. Learn to love the waiting or you'll never make it. Cade learned to endure the waiting. Learned to exist in the space between heartbeats. Day 2 brought a complication. Taliban patrols swept the mountainside at noon. 8 fighters AK-47s moving in a search pattern. They passed within 50 meters of the hide site. The team froze, not even breathing. Cade's hand rested on her rifle, ready to engage if they were discovered. Her heart hammered so hard she was certain the Taliban could hear it. The fighters moved closer. Closer. One stopped 10 meters away, scanning the rocks with binoculars. Cade's finger moved to the trigger. If he spotted them, she'd have maybe 2 seconds to drop him before the others opened fire. And then it would be 6 Americans against 8 Taliban in close quarters, and someone was definitely dying. The fighter lowered his binoculars, said something to his companions. They laughed and moved on. When they were finally gone, Sterling exhaled slowly. That was close. Too close, Hawk muttered. They're actively searching. Someone knows we're here. Leak at the fob, Maddox suggested. Maybe. Or maybe they're just paranoid. Hawk's expression darkened. Either way, we stay alert. Hour 34 brought a new crisis. Cade's leg cramped severely, not just discomfort, but a vicious spasm that threatened to force movement. She bit down on her lip until she tasted blood, using pain to override pain, refusing to shift position. Sterling saw it happen, saw her face contort, whispered, "Breathe through it." She breathed, controlled the breathing, made it mechanical, removed from the agony. The cramp lasted 6 minutes, the longest 6 minutes of her life. But she held. When it finally released, Maddox's voice came over the radio, quiet and genuine. That was discipline, Brennan. Most would have compromised position. She didn't respond. Couldn't. Was too focused on not crying from the pain still echoing through her muscles. Day 3 brought success. Dawn. The village stirred. Civilians emerged for morning prayers. And then at 06:15, a convoy of 4 vehicles rolled into the village square. 15 to 20 fighters dismounted. And in the center, surrounded by bodyguards, was a man matching Commander Khalid Mansour's description. Distinctive beard scar on his left cheek, commander's bearing. Possible target, Sterling reported. Village square, 1150 meters. Hawk moved to the spotting scope, confirmed. That's him. Positive identification. Brennan, you have the shot. Cade's scope found Mansour. He was talking to his men, gesturing clearly, giving orders. 6 bodyguards within arm's reach. Civilians in the background, but well clear of the immediate area. When, she asked. 8 knots left to right. Temperature 64 and climbing. Elevation 11 degrees uphill. Sterling's voice was steady, professional. Clear shot. Your call. This was different from the mortar team. This was a named target. A man whose death would save American lives, but who was still a human being, with thoughts and maybe a family, and certainly people who'd mourn him. Cade thought about her father's final journal entry. About choosing which shots to take. About morality and mission colliding. But this wasn't collision. This was clear. Mansour coordinated the IED networks that had killed 200 coalition soldiers. Killing him would save lives. The math was simple. She adjusted her scope. Plus 12 minutes of angle for elevation. Plus 2 for windage. Breathing slowed. Heart rate dropped. The world narrowed to the target, in the trigger, and the choice. She squeezed. The rifle bucked. Through the scope, she watched Mansour's head snap back. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Chaos erupted in the village square. Fighters scattered, searching for the threat. Bodyguards tried to drag Mansour's body to cover, but there was no point. The shot had been instantly fatal. Confirmed kill, Hawk said quietly. Outstanding shooting, Sergeant. Kill count 3. The team exfiltrated, immediately moving fast through the mountains while Taliban fighters poured out of the village below, searching for ghosts. By the time the enemy reached the hide site, the team was 2 miles away and moving. They reached the extraction point at noon. Helicopters pulled them out under Taliban fire, small arms, nothing serious. They made it back to FOB Kandahar by 1400 hours. When they landed, Captain Barnes was waiting with a grim smile. Confirmed through multiple sources, Khalid Mansour KIA. That's a major win. Well done. The team debriefed, wrote after-action reports, cleaned weapons, went through the mechanical routines that helped process what had just happened. Cade sat alone in the bunker that evening, thinking about the shot, about Mansour dropping, about the way his bodyguards had tried to save him even though he was already gone. Sterling found her there. First combat kill of a named target. First one where I knew his name before I pulled the trigger. It always feels different when they have names. The close ones feel personal. The distant ones feel like abstractions. He sat down beside her. But they're all real, all permanent. The job is learning to carry that weight without letting it crush you. How do you do that? I remember why I'm here, what I'm protecting. The Marines on this base sleeping soundly tonight because Mansour can't coordinate any more IED attacks. That's real too. That's worth something. Cade nodded slowly. My father wrote about that, about balancing the weight. Smart man. Listen to him. Sterling left her alone with her thoughts. She opened her father's journal, looking for wisdom, looking for permission to feel what she was feeling. Day 112. Third combat kill today. High-value target, clean shot, mission success. But I keep thinking about his bodyguards trying to save him. About the fact that someone somewhere is mourning him tonight. About whether that matters. Ashford says it should matter, that the day it stops mattering is the day I need to quit. But I also think about the Marines whose lives just got a little safer because this target can't hurt them anymore. Cade closed the journal and lay back on her cot. Her father had been right. You hold both truths. The weight of the life you took and the lives you saved, neither erases the other. That was the real burden of this work. She was beginning to understand what her father had carried. The celebration at the FOB was subdued but genuine. Mansour's death was a significant victory. Colonel Vance personally congratulated the team, shaking hands, expressing appreciation. But when she pulled Hawk aside, Cade noticed the conversation looked tense. Vance's body language was defensive. Hawk's was aggressive. They argued for several minutes before Vance walked away, her face flushed with something that looked like anger or shame. Cade filed it away. Something was wrong. She couldn't identify what, but her instincts, honed by 3 weeks of Ashford's training, were screaming warning. That night, unable to sleep, she walked the perimeter. The base was quiet except for sentries and the distant generator hum. She passed by the command center and heard voices through a partially open window. Vance's voice, talking on a satellite phone. I told you this was a mistake, General. She performed flawlessly. A male voice tinny through the speaker. Colonel Vance, your orders were clear. Document deficiencies. That was the directive. There were no deficiencies to document. She executed the mission perfectly. Then engineer circumstances where deficiencies become apparent. We need evidence that female combat integration fails under real pressure. Pentagon needs this narrative before Congress votes on expanding roles. Cade's blood went cold. You're asking me to sabotage a Marine General Brentwood. I'm ordering you to provide accurate documentation. If you can't do that, we'll find someone who will. Your career advancement depends on your cooperation, Diana. Silence. Then Vance's voice defeated. Understood, sir. The call ended. Cade moved quickly away from the window, her mind racing. This wasn't about merit. This was about politics. About proving women couldn't handle combat so the Pentagon could justify restricting their roles. And Vance, who should have been supporting her, was being pressured to manufacture failure. The question was, how far would Vance go to protect her career? Cade returned to the bunker and pulled out her satellite phone. The call connected after 3 rings. Ashford, it's Brennan. I need advice. She explained what she'd overheard. The conspiracy, the pressure on Vance, the realization that her deployment might be designed to create failure rather than document success. Ashford was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was hard. Politics and warfare mix like blood and oil, Brennan. They destroy each other. Your job is simple. Be so damn good they can't spin it. Every shot perfect. Every mission flawless. Give them nothing to use against you. What if they sabotage the missions, set me up to fail? Then you succeed anyway. You outwork the sabotage. You become undeniable. A pause. Your father faced similar pressure in Fallujah. Political officers questioned every decision looking for reasons to restrict sniper operations. You know what he did? He made himself indispensable. Made it so that pulling him from the field would cost American lives. They couldn't afford to bench him. Politics be damned. You do the same. How? By being excellent. That's all you ever control. The call ended. Cade sat in the darkness, thinking about excellence and sabotage and how to fight an enemy that wore the same uniform you did. She didn't tell Hawk. Not yet. Didn't know if he was complicit or another victim. But she filed the information away, stayed alert, and prepared for whatever came next. What came next was worse than she could have imagined. Mission 2 came 3 days later. Intelligence reported Taliban leadership meeting at a compound in Village Skin. High-value targets, multiple commanders. Opportunity too good to pass up. The plan was simple. Marine rifle platoon would raid the compound while the sniper team provided overwatch from elevated positions. Cade would cover the southern approach. Maddox the east, Garrett the west. Hawk would command from the north. They inserted at 0200 hours established positions by 0300. The raid began at 0330 and immediately went to hell. The compound exploded with gunfire the moment the Marines breached the door. Massive ambush. Taliban fighters poured from every building surrounding the American position. It was a trap. Radio traffic erupted with desperate calls for support. Contact, heavy contact. We're surrounded. Cade's position overlooked the southern approach. Through her scope, she saw 15 Taliban fighters flanking the Marines preparing to close the trap completely. RPG teams setting up. Machine gunners establishing fields of fire. No one had given her clearance to engage. But if she waited for orders, Marines would die. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes the right choice is the one that saves lives regardless of the rules. Engaging South Sector, she reported over the radio. She didn't wait for confirmation. The first fighter had an RPG aimed at the Marine position. She dropped him with a headshot at 1,200 meters. The second was setting up a machine gun. She put a round through his chest. The third was coordinating the flanking maneuver. Center mass, down. She worked methodically through the targets. No emotion, no hesitation. Just precision and calculation and the cold mathematics of survival. Fighter with grenade, down. Counter sniper in a window, down. Radio operator calling for reinforcements, down. 90 seconds. 6 targets eliminated. The southern flank collapsed. The Marines broke free, extracted with their wounded. 0 killed in action, thanks to the overwatch fire. When the team returned to the phobie at 0700, exhausted and adrenaline crashed, the Marine platoon commander found Cade. You saved my men, Sergeant. All of them. We were dead without that covering fire. Kill count 9. Maddox approached afterward, his expression complex. That was exceptional shooting, Brennan. 6 targets in 90 seconds at extended range. That's elite-level performance. Even Garrett managed a grudging nod. You did good work out there. But something bothered Cade. The ambush had been too perfect. Too prepared. Like the Taliban had known exactly when and where the raid would happen. At the debriefing, Hawk raised the same concern. They were waiting for us. Someone fed them our operational plan. Vance ordered an immediate investigation, focused on Afghan interpreters and local contractors. Standard procedure after intelligence leaks. But Cade wondered. Wondered if the leak had been intentional. Wondered if someone had wanted the mission to fail, wanted casualties, wanted evidence that the female sniper couldn't protect her team. She kept those thoughts to herself, but she watched and waited and prepared for the knife that she knew was coming. It arrived 2 days later, wrapped in bad intelligence and worse intentions. The briefing room felt different this time. Tense. Colonel Vance stood at the tactical display, with an expression that didn't quite match the confidence in her voice. New high-value target identified, she began. Rahman Mansour, brother of the deceased Khalid Mansour. Intelligence indicates he's organizing a revenge attack on this FOB. Massive assault estimated 200 fighters. If he succeeds, everyone here dies. Captain Barnes pulled up surveillance imagery. Rahman has been operating in the shadows for 3 years. Extremely careful. But our most reliable intelligence source confirms he'll be at this location tomorrow at 0800 hours. 24-hour window only. Hawk studied the imagery with narrowed eyes. This intel seems unusually specific, Captain. Source confidence. Highest reliability, sir. Multiple corroborations. Multiple corroborations from the same source network doesn't constitute independent verification. Hawk's voice carried an edge. I don't like it. Too clean. Too convenient. Vance stepped forward. Colonel Hawk, this intelligence has been vetted through proper channels. The threat is credible and immediate. We have authorization to engage. Are you questioning the assessment? I'm questioning the certainty. In my experience, when intelligence is this precise, someone wants us to take a specific action. Hawk met her eyes. Usually the wrong one. The room went quiet. Cade watched the exchange, saw Vance's jaw tighten, saw something flicker across her face that looked like guilt or fear or both. Your concerns are noted, Vance said finally, but the mission is authorized. Prepare your team, Colonel. We execute tomorrow dawn. That night, Cade couldn't sleep. She lay on her cot reading her father's journal, looking for wisdom that felt increasingly inadequate for the situation she was facing. Her phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Medical tent. Now. Come alone. HC Holden Cross. She slipped out of the bunker, moved through the darkened fob to the medical facility. Found Holden waiting in his office, face drawn with exhaustion and worry. What's wrong? She asked. I overheard Vance on a call tonight. She was arguing with someone at the Pentagon, a General Brentwood. Holden's voice was tight. Cade, they're setting you up. This mission tomorrow, the intelligence is fabricated, deliberately bad. They want you to kill the wrong target. Her stomach dropped. You're sure? I heard her say it. She was resisting arguing that it was wrong, but he threatened her career. Told her to feed you the target information and make sure you take the shot. Holden moved closer. They're going to document it as female sniper kills civilian due to poor judgment under pressure. It's a political hit job. Can you prove it? Not without accessing classified systems. But Cade, you can't take this mission. You have to refuse. If I refuse, they'll remove me from the field. Call it lack of nerve. That's exactly what they want, proof that women can't handle combat pressure. Better removed than turned into propaganda. Holden's hands found her shoulders. Please, I didn't transfer here to watch you get destroyed by Pentagon politics. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the fear in his eyes. The care. The beginning of something neither of them had time to explore, but couldn't ignore anymore. I won't refuse, she said quietly. But I'll be careful. I'll verify the target 3 times. If anything's wrong, I don't shoot. That might not be enough. It has to be, because the alternative is letting them win without firing a shot. She stepped back. Thank you for warning me, but I'm seeing this through. She left him standing there, returned to the bunker, and lay awake until dawn, trying to figure out how to navigate a mission designed to destroy her. The position overlooked an abandoned village. Too perfect. Too exposed. Sterling set up the spotting scope with visible unease. This feels wrong, he muttered. We're silhouetted against the sky. Anyone with optics can see us from the valley. I know, Cade said. Her scope swept the village below. Empty buildings, no civilian activity. Just one man dressed in Taliban commander garb moving toward the village center, exactly on schedule. Too perfect. Possible target, Sterling reported. Village square, 1060 meters. Matches description. Beard scar, commander bearing. Hawk was at her elbow, his own scope trained on the target. Something's not right. That scar looks fresh, and his movements are wrong. Too deliberate, like he's performing. Overwatch, this is TOC. Confirm positive identification. You are cleared to engage. Vance's voice over the radio urgent. Hawk keyed his mic. TOC Overwatch. Target appearance matches, but behavior is inconsistent with Overwatch. This is TO actual. That is a direct order. Engage the target now. Clock is running. Cade's finger rested on the trigger. Through the scope, she studied the man. The beard looked real. The scar was there. But something about his posture, the way he moved it, didn't feel military. It felt civilian. Brennan, take the shot. Vance's voice harder now. That's an order. Her father's words came back to her. Sometimes the right choice is the one that defies the rules. Excellence isn't about the shots you make. It's about knowing which shots to take. But which rule, the one telling her to shoot or the one telling her something was wrong? Brennan, fire, Vance shouted, Hawk's hand on her shoulder. It's your call, Sergeant. Whatever you decide, I back you. The man in the village square turned. For just a moment his face was fully visible, and in that moment Cade saw it, not the face of a hardened commander, but the face of someone terrified. Someone who'd been dressed up and positioned and told to stand in a specific location. But the order was direct. Disobeying would end her career. She made her choice. The only choice she could make, and still live with herself afterward. She fired, the man dropped. And immediately a secondary explosion ripped through the building behind him, a cache of explosives hidden waiting. The blast turned the village square into an inferno. Confirmed kill, Sterling said, but his voice was hollow. Then the radio crackled, local frequency, Taliban propaganda channel. A voice in Pashto, then translated by their interpreter. American murderers kill village peace negotiator. Elder Rashid Ahmad, attempting to arrange local ceasefire, assassinated by U.S. forces. See the American female soldier who shoots civilians. See the face of your oppressor. Video footage appeared on their tactical display within minutes. Someone had filmed the entire sequence. High-quality footage of Cade taking the shot, of the elder dropping, of the explosion that proved to anyone watching that this had been a deliberate setup to murder a civilian. The Taliban had turned her into their propaganda victory, and someone at the FOB had helped them do it. The extraction was under heavy fire. They barely made it back to the helicopters as Taliban fighters poured into the valley, screaming for revenge, firing wildly at the American position. When they landed at the FOB, Colonel Vance was waiting with military police. Sergeant Brennan, you're suspended from combat operations pending investigation. Surrender your weapon. Cade handed over her rifle, felt the weight of it leaving her hands like losing a part of herself. Colonel, that intelligence was faulty, Hawk said, his voice dangerously quiet. Sergeant Brennan followed orders based on information provided by your office. Which is why there's an investigation, Colonel. Vance wouldn't meet his eyes. Sergeant Brennan is confined to base. No communication off-site, no access to operational areas. Dismissed. In the bunker afterward, Cade sat on her cot, feeling the walls close in. She'd killed an innocent man. Following orders didn't change that. The trigger had been under her finger. The choice had been hers. Garrett approached her, expression triumphant. I told you, women don't belong in combat roles. Too emotional. Poor judgment under pressure. You just proved exactly what I said. Maddox surprised everyone by stepping forward. Belay that, Garrett. Brennan followed lawful orders based on intelligence provided by command. Any of us would have taken that shot. She should have known better. How, by what magical intuition? Maddox's voice rose. She did everything right. The failure is in the intelligence, not the shooter. Sterling joined in. We'll figure out what happened, Cade. Someone set you up. We'll prove it. But words didn't change reality. Cade had killed an unarmed civilian. The video was spreading across Taliban networks, probably already on international news. Her face was now the face of American military failure. Everything she'd worked for destroyed by one shot. That night, Holden found her at a remote corner of the FOB, sitting alone in the darkness. She'd been crying the first time since arriving in Afghanistan. The first time since she was 9 years old, watching her father's coffin lowered into the ground. This isn't on you, he said quietly, sitting beside her. I pulled the trigger. That makes it mine. You followed orders based on intelligence that was deliberately falsified. The guilt belongs to whoever corrupted that intel. His voice was gentle. Cade, you're human. You're allowed to feel this. You're allowed to break. I wanted to prove I could do this. Instead, I proved I can kill innocents. You proved you can follow orders under pressure. That's what soldiers do. He was quiet for a moment. My sister was a Marine. Iraq 2007. She followed bad intelligence into an ambush. Died because someone higher up made a mistake, and she paid for it. I know what it looks like when the system fails good people. This isn't your failure. This is theirs. She looked at him. You never mentioned a sister. Because it still hurts. 10 years later still hurts. He met her eyes. But I learned something from losing her. Life is short, wars are temporary, and the people who matter, you don't get unlimited time with them. So when you find someone worth saving, you don't let politics or pride or fear get in the way. Holden, I love you. He said it simply, quietly, like stating a fact. I know the timing is terrible. I know you've got enough on your plate, but I need you to know when this is over. When you're past this, I'll be waiting, however long it takes. Cade felt something crack open inside her. Some wall she'd built to survive her father's death and the years of trying to live up to his memory. I can't. Not now. If I let myself feel anything right now, I'll fall apart completely. Then I'll help hold you together. That's what people who love each other do. She wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself fall into the comfort he was offering. But comfort felt like weakness, and weakness felt like betraying everything her father had died believing. Ask me again, she whispered. When this is over, if I survive it, ask me again. Deal. He stood, helped her to her feet. Now come on. Sterling found something in the communications logs. You need to see it. Sterling had a laptop open in a corner of the bunker screen, angled away from prying eyes. I shouldn't have access to this. But my dad was Army Signals, taught me a few tricks about systems penetration. He pulled up classified communications. The intelligence about Rahman Mansour came from a single source. No secondary verification, no corroboration from other networks. Just one report filed directly to Colonel Vance's office. Hawk leaned over, studying the logs. Source designation. That's the interesting part. Sterling highlighted text. It's coded as Human Alpha 7. But when I cross-referenced, Alpha 7 was deactivated 6 months ago. Compromised source. This intelligence is coming from a channel that officially doesn't exist anymore. Someone reactivated a dead source to feed false information, Hawk said slowly. Someone with access to classified source management systems. Someone at the Pentagon, Cade finished. Hawk straightened. I'm accessing Vance's files. If she's complicit, there'll be a trail. Sterling, keep digging through communications. Brennan, you document everything. We're building a case. Sir, accessing a commanding officer's files without authorization is career-ending if I'm wrong. But if I'm right, it saves a Marine and exposes a conspiracy. Hawk's expression was hard. I've spent 18 years living with the guilt of surviving when your father didn't. I'm not adding another Brennan to my conscience. We do this now. He left. Sterling returned to his laptop. Cade sat on her cot, thinking about choices and consequences and men who carried guilt like anchors. 2 hours later, Hawk returned with a tablet. His face was carved from stone. I found it. Email chain between Vance and Pentagon Colonel David Brentwood. Dates back 3 weeks. He pulled up the messages. October 10th, Brentwood orders Vance to document female sniper deficiencies. Says congressional testimony depends on proof that women can't handle combat. He scrolled. October 26th, Vance reports Brennan has performed flawlessly. Brentwood responds, engineer circumstances where failures become apparent. Use your imagination. Her promotion to brigadier general depends on cooperation. More scrolling. October 30th, Brentwood provides the fabricated intelligence package. Tells Vance to feed it to the sniper team. Ensure Brennan takes the shot. Video documentation required. Cade felt cold. They set me up from the beginning. From before the beginning, Hawk corrected. This operation was designed to create political ammunition against female combat integration. You were the sacrificial pawn. What do? We confront Vance. Make her choose between her career and her conscience. Hawk's jaw was set. And if she chooses wrong, we go over her head, all the way to the top if necessary. They found Vance in her office at 0300 hours. She was awake, staring at a computer screen, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Colonel Hawk, Sergeant Brennan, you're out of bounds. So are you, Colonel. Hawk dropped the tablet on her desk. I accessed your classified communications. I know about Brentwood. I know about the setup. All of it. Vance's face went pale. You hacked that's a court-martial offense. So is conspiracy to create false intelligence resulting in civilian casualties. Hawk's voice was cold. You want to compare charges? For a long moment, Vance said nothing. Then she slumped in her chair, the fight draining out of her. You think I wanted this? You think I enjoyed watching Brennan get destroyed? I think you chose your career over a Marine's honor. That's all I need to know. You don't understand the pressure. Brentwood had evidence of mistakes I made years ago. Personnel decisions that could be reinterpreted as favoritism. He said he'd bury me unless I cooperated. And my career destroy my reputation, maybe even bring criminal charges. Vance's voice cracked. I've spent 20 years building this career. 20 years proving women could lead in combat. And he was going to take it all away unless I helped to prove the opposite. So you sacrificed Brennan to save yourself? Cade's voice was quiet but hard. You became exactly what you fought against. Vance looked at her and something broke in her expression. Shame. Deep and corrosive. You're right. I did. And I'll have to live with that. She straightened. But there's something else you should know. The real Rahman Mansour surfaced yesterday. He's planning a coordinated attack on 3 FOBs, including this one. Mortar assault 200 fighters. If he succeeds, everyone here dies. When? Hawk demanded. 48 hours, maybe less. Vance pulled up intelligence reports. I can't officially authorize any response. Pentagon is watching. If I greenlight another operation involving Brennan Brentwood, we'll know something's wrong. Then we go unofficial. Hawk's expression was dangerous. I know where Rahman will be. I know when. If a team happened to be in the right place at the right time, you'd be too busy with other duties to notice. Vance held his gaze. If such a team existed, and if they happened to eliminate a high-value target, I suppose I'd have to write a report praising their initiative. A pause. I can't give you back what I took, Brennan, but I can give you a chance to prove the truth that the failure was mine, not yours. Cade stood. Where will Rahman be, Colonel? Mountain Village Grid Echo 7. He'll coordinate the attack from there. Distance from this FOB 1,900 meters. Beyond standard effective range from 48.5. My father's journal has data for 1,800 meters. I can push it. Even if you can make the shot, you'll need authorization that I can't give officially. Vance's voice was quiet. But if Colonel Hawk happened to take a routine patrol into those mountains, and if that patrol happened to intercept enemy forces, well, that's just good fortune. Hawk nodded. Understood. Brennan, Sterling, Maddox gear up. We leave in 2 hours. But before they could move, Sterling pulled Kate aside. His face was grim. I found something else in the communications logs. Something worse. What? The civilian you killed, Elder Rashid Ahmad. He wasn't random. Sterling pulled up a file. He was an actual peace negotiator. Real one. Working with coalition forces to arrange local ceasefires. The Taliban knew this. They dressed him up as Rahman put him in the kill zone and filmed it. But here's the thing, someone at our level fed them the information about when and where we'd be. Cade's blood went cold. Someone on our team? I don't know. But the leak didn't come from Vance's office. It came from operational comms. Someone with access to mission details. Sterling's voice dropped. Someone in this room might have set you up. And if they did it, once they might do it again. Someone on the team might be complicit. Cade looked at the team. Hawk preparing gear. Maddox checking weapons. Sterling himself. Any of them could have access to operational comms. Any of them could have been pressured or paid or blackmailed. What do I do? She whispered. We go on this mission, but we watch everyone. And if something feels wrong, we abort. No heroics. Cade nodded, but her mind was racing. Trust had just become a luxury she couldn't afford. They moved through darkness, 3 Marines and a colonel on an unauthorized mission that could end careers or save lives depending on how the next few hours played out. Maddox had insisted on coming. You saved my life at that village raid. I'm returning the favor. My sister, she was assaulted by her commanding officer. Career Army 15 years in, and some bastard with power destroyed her. She reported it. They buried the report, protected him, destroyed her instead. Maddox's voice was rough. I blame women in combat. Told myself if women hadn't been allowed in, she'd have been safe. But that was wrong. The problem wasn't women in uniform. The problem was men with power and no accountability. I was wrong to treat you like a threat. You're not the problem. You're proof the system can work. Thank you, Sergeant. Thank me by making this shot. Show them that excellence is excellence regardless of gender. They reached the mountain position at 0500 hours, established the hide site, settled in to wait. Brennan Maddox said during the quiet hours, "That shot at the village, you followed orders. None of us would have done different. You're a good Marine. Don't let them take that from you." Hour 12 brought movement. Taliban fighters gathering in the village below. And in the center directing operations was a man matching Rahman Mansour's description. Real this time. Verified through multiple angles, multiple observations. "Range," Cade asked. 1950 meters. Sterling's voice was tight. "That's beyond your rifle's effective range. Wind is 12 knots gusting to 18. Temperature 96 degrees. Barometric pressure 29.7. Even with perfect conditions, this is a low probability shot. What's the alternative?" "We call in an airstrike. Too close to civilian village," Hawk said. "We'd kill dozens of non-combatants. It has to be surgical." Cade pulled out her father's journal, found the pages on extreme range shooting. His notes on bullet drop wind, drift the way gravity and atmosphere conspired against precision at distances where most shooters never even tried. Day 203 made an 1/800-meter shot today, longest of my career. Ashford said I was crazy to attempt it, but the math works if you trust it. Calculate everything. Then trust your instinct to make the final adjustment that calculation can't account for. Excellence is where science and art meet. "I can make this shot," Cade said quietly. "You sure?" Hawk's voice was careful. "Miss and Rahman escapes. Hit and you save 300 Marines. No pressure." "I'm sure." She settled into position, adjusted the rifle. Calculated elevation, 48 minutes of angle. Calculated windage, 9 minutes left to account for the drift. Accounted for temperature, humidity, the slight downhill angle. Sterling called corrections as conditions shifted. Maddox provided security scanning for counter-snipers. Hawk watched through his scope, ready to confirm or deny the shot. In the village below, Rahman Mansour raised a radio to his mouth, coordinating his attack. Minutes away from launching the assault that would kill hundreds. Cade's breathing slowed. Her heart rate dropped. The world narrowed to the target and the trigger and the choice. This was what her father had faced. Choices with no guarantees. Decisions where hesitation meant death. She thought about the elders she'd killed, about following orders versus following conscience, about her father choosing to save a civilian even though it cost his life. Different choice, same weight. She fired. The bullet flew for 2.4 seconds, arced through the sky like a promise or a prayer. 2.4 seconds where everything hung in balance. Through the scope, she watched the bullet strike. Perfect hit. Rahman Mansour dropped the radio falling from his hand. "Confirmed kill," Sterling shouted. "Dead center, that's 1950 meters." The Taliban fighters scattered confused, searching for a threat they couldn't see. The attack coordination collapsed. The assault was broken before it began. Kill count 10. But Sterling was already scanning. Wait, secondary targets. 2 Taliban officers attempting to rally the fighters. Range 1280 and 1300 meters. Cade saw them through her scope. Both men shouting orders, trying to reorganize the scattered attack force. If they succeeded, the assault would continue. "Engaging," she reported. First officer, 1280 meters. Adjusted for wind. Fired. Down. Kill count 11. Second officer running now, 1300 meters. Moving target. She led him, compensated, fired. He fell mid-stride. Kill count 12. "All targets eliminated," Sterling confirmed. "Attack coordination completely broken." The Taliban fighters fled in disarray. The assault shattered beyond recovery. Hawk's hand landed on her shoulder, gripped tight. "Outstanding shooting, Sergeant. You just saved this entire FOB. 12 confirmed kills in this deployment. That's a new base record." They extracted fast, moving through the mountains while Taliban fighters searched the wrong areas. Made it back to the FOB by 1400 hours. Colonel Vance was waiting, and she wasn't alone. General Marcus Keating stood beside her. 2 stars Joint Special Operations Command, stone-faced and intimidating. Colonel Hawk, Sergeant Brennan, my office. Now. The office was crowded. Keating at the head of the table. Vance to his left. Captain Barnes recording everything. Hawk and Cade standing at attention. Someone want to explain? Keating began, his voice like gravel. Why I received a report about an unauthorized operation resulting in the death of a high-value target that officially doesn't exist. Sir, I can explain, Hawk started. I wasn't asking you, Colonel. Keating's eyes found Cade. Sergeant Brennan, what happened out there? She laid it out, everything. The fabricated intelligence, the setup, the dead civilian, the conspiracy to create political ammunition against female combat integration, and finally the decision to take an unauthorized mission to stop Rahman Mansour. When she finished, Keating was quiet for a long moment. Colonel Vance, confirm or deny these allegations? Vance's voice was steady. I confirm them, sir. I was pressured by Colonel Brentwood at the Pentagon to manufacture evidence of female combat failure. I complied. It was wrong. I take full responsibility. You'll get your chance to take responsibility, Colonel. Right now, I need to know, is Rahman Mansour actually dead? Confirmed through multiple sources, sir. The attack on 3 FOBs has been called off. Sergeant Brennan's shot saved an estimated 300 American lives. Keating studied Cade with eyes that had seen too much war to be impressed by simple competence. But something in his expression shifted. Respect, maybe. 1950 meters. That's beyond standard effective range. Yes, sir. But my father's journal had data on extreme range shooting. I used his calculations. Your father was Declan Brennan. Yes, sir. I knew him. Iraq 2005. He was the best sniper I ever worked with. Keating stood. Sergeant Brennan, you're reinstated to active duty. Your record will reflect that the civilian casualty resulted from deliberately falsified intelligence, not operator error. And you're being recommended for the Silver Star for your actions in eliminating Rahman Mansour and saving American lives. Sir, I don't argue, Sergeant. You earned it. He turned to Vance. Colonel, you and I will be having a much longer conversation about your future, which probably doesn't include one. To Hawk, Colonel, you violated about 15 regulations conducting an unauthorized operation. Lucky for you, it worked. Do it again, and I'll have your bars. Understood, sir. Good. Now everyone get out of my sight. The celebration at the FOB was genuine this time. Marines who'd been saved by the intervention they didn't know had happened expressing gratitude for the team that had eliminated the threat before it materialized. Maddox approached Cade with something like respect. That shot, that impossible shot, nobody else could have made it. You're one hell of a Marine, Brennan. Thank you. No, thank you for proving me wrong about every assumption I had. He held out his hand. She shook his hand, felt something settle in her chest. Acceptance. Hard-earned and genuine. Sterling was next, grinning. 1950 meters. That's going to be the range record for years, maybe decades. You're officially legendary. Even Garrett approached, though her expression was complicated. I was wrong about you. About a lot of things. I've been here 3 years and have 14 kills. You showed up and got 12 in 2 weeks. You made it look easy. I was jealous. But mostly I was scared. Scared that if you failed, they'd use it to prove all of us don't belong. And then you didn't fail. You succeeded so spectacularly that my insecurity looked ridiculous. We're on the same team, Garrett. I know that now. That evening, Cade found Holden at the medical tent. He was treating a Marine with a minor shrapnel wound, professional and calm. When he finished, he found her waiting outside. I heard what happened. The shot, the reinstatement, the Silver Star. He smiled, tired but genuine. You did it. You proved them all wrong. I proved I could make one good shot. That's all. That's everything. He stepped closer. You said to ask you again when this was over, when you'd survived it. So I'm asking Cade Brennan, will you give us a chance? Not now, not in the middle of war. But eventually, she looked at him. This man who'd transferred to Afghanistan because he cared, who'd warned her about the conspiracy, who'd offered love when she'd had nothing but shame and failure. I'm going to instructor school when I get stateside. Training the next generation of snipers. That's probably 3 more years minimum. I'll wait 3 years. You don't know that. Actually, I do. He pulled out a small leather journal different from her father's but similar vintage. My sister's journal. Last entry is dated 2 days before she died. She wrote, "Life is too short to waste on fear. If you find someone worth loving, hold on to them. Because tomorrow isn't guaranteed." He looked up. "I'm holding on, Cade. However long it takes." She kissed him. There in the darkness outside the medical tent, with the war still going on around them and the future uncertain. She kissed him and felt something inside her unclench. Some knot of grief and pressure and impossible expectations finally releasing. 3 years, she whispered. Ask me again in 3 years. Deal. The Silver Star ceremony happened at Camp Lejeune 6 months later. March 2025. The entire base turned out. General Keating flew in to present the medal personally. Cade stood at attention in dress blues, feeling the weight of the moment. Her mother was there crying, quietly proud and sad all at once. Ashford was there, standing straight and tall and allowing himself the faintest smile. Hawk was there, his expression complex pride and grief, and something like redemption. Holden was there, having transferred back stateside when his rotation ended. He caught her eye and smiled. Keating pinned the medal and spoke briefly. Sergeant Brennan's actions under fire, demonstrating exceptional gallantry and intrepidity against an enemy of the United States, saved an estimated 300 American lives. Her marksmanship at extreme range, conducted under hostile conditions with incomplete intelligence, represents the highest standards of Marine Corps excellence. The ceremony ended. People approached to congratulate her. Marines she'd never met thanking her for proving what needed proving. Women who'd been watching her story saying she'd made their paths easier. Her mother handed her an envelope. I was supposed to give you this when you graduated Scout Sniper School, but your father wrote it for a different moment. I think this is that moment. Cade opened it later alone in her quarters. Her father's handwriting, his words across time. Dear Cade, if you're reading this, you've done something I knew you would. You've excelled beyond expectations. People will tell you that being my daughter opened doors. They're right. But you're the one who walked through those doors and proved you belonged. Being a Marine isn't about breaking barriers. It's about serving with honor, regardless of what barriers others construct. Don't carry my legacy as a burden. Create your own. I made choices that cost me my life, but saved others. I'd make those same choices again. That's what it means to serve, putting the mission and your Marines above your own survival. Excellence isn't about being better than others. It's about being better than you were yesterday. Whatever you choose, warfare or peace service or family, choose it fully. Don't apologize for your choices. Own them, live them, make them count. I'm proud of you. I always will be. Love always. Dad. Cade folded the letter carefully, placed it in her father's journal. Then she pulled out a notebook and began writing her own entry. Day 1 as instructor. Today I start teaching the next generation of Marine snipers. 30 students, mixed gender, all of them carrying their own pressure, their own need to prove themselves. I won't tell them about my record. Won't use my father's name as a teaching tool. I'll teach them fundamentals, discipline, decision-making under pressure, and most importantly, excellence isn't about the shots you make. It's about knowing which shots to take. My father died believing that serving others mattered more than surviving. I used to think that was tragic. Now I understand it was noble and necessary. I'm not my father. I'm my own Marine. But I carry his wisdom, and I'll pass it forward. Cade. The years that followed brought changes. Ashford retired at 68, attending Cade's wedding. With tears in his eyes, he didn't bother hiding. Your father would be proud, he told her. But more importantly, you should be proud of yourself. You became your own Marine. That's all I ever wanted. He passed away peacefully 2 years later. Cade spoke at his funeral, called him the father she'd needed when hers was gone. Hawk made full colonel before retiring in 2029. His final act was recommending Cade for promotion to Staff Sergeant and Chief Sniper Instructor. I spent 18 years carrying your father's death, he told her at his retirement ceremony. Watching you succeed, that finally let me put it down. Thank you for that. Maddox transferred to Quantico, became a senior instructor alongside Cade. They worked together, training the next generation. His initial prejudice transformed into fierce advocacy for merit-based standards. Sterling earned his commission, became a lieutenant, commanded his own reconnaissance unit. He wrote Cade monthly, always signing off. "Still grateful you let me spot for you. Best decision I ever made." Garrett remained at Camp Lejeune, earned her own reputation through 5 more deployments and 23 additional confirmed kills. She and Cade became friends, real friends bonded by shared understanding of what it cost to be excellent in a world that expected failure. In Vance, she spent 3 years testifying before Congress about Pentagon pressure and political corruption in military integration policies. Her testimony led to reforms, new oversight, new protections. She never got her brigadier general star, but she got something better, the knowledge that she'd made the system more just for those who followed. She sent Cade a letter on her daughter's birth. "Dear Cade, I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure the next generation of female Marines doesn't face what you faced. That's my penance. That's my purpose. Your daughter will grow up in a military that's better because you refuse to break. Thank you for that." Diana. The world moved on. The wars continued, but the people who'd been part of Cade's story carried forward change by what they'd witnessed and what they'd learned. Excellence, it turned out, was contagious, and the legacy spread one Marine at a time. 18 months later, June 2026, Cade stood at the rifle range at 0500 hours alone, except for the distant sound of morning PT formations. She set up at the 2,000-meter line beyond even her combat record. Holden appeared with 2 cups of coffee. "Trying to beat your own record. Trying to prove there's always farther to go." She took the coffee. "Thank you. For coffee, for waiting, for being here, for everything." They'd been dating officially for 6 months now. Careful, deliberate, building something real instead of rushing into something desperate. "Cade," he set down his coffee, "I need to ask you something." "Ask." He dropped to one knee, pulled out a small box. "I said I'd wait 3 years. It's been 18 months, close enough. Cade Brennan, will you marry me?" She stared at him, at this man who'd risked his career to warn her, who'd waited while she healed, who'd never asked her to be anything other than exactly who she was. Yes. The wedding happened 6 months later, December 2026. Small ceremony on base attended by the people who mattered. Ashford walked her down the aisle, the closest thing to a father she had left. Hawke stood as best men, his expression finally at peace. Sterling and Maddox were groomsmen. Even Garrett attended, genuinely happy for her. Her mother cried. Happy tears this time. Vance was there too, uninvited but welcomed. She approached Cade before the ceremony. "I don't deserve to be here." "No, but I invited you anyway." Cade's voice was firm but not unkind. "What you did was wrong, but you chose to make it right eventually. That counts for something." "Thank you," Vance's voice cracked. "For what it's worth, I've spent the last year advocating for merit-based integration policies, using your story to prove that excellence is the only metric that matters. It's not redemption, but it's something. It is something. Keep doing it." Cade married Holden Cross and became Cade Brennan Cross, hyphenated and proud of it. She was a Marine. She was a wife. She was both. She refused to choose. 5 years later, 2031, Staff Sergeant Cade Brennan Cross stood before a new class of Scout Sniper students. 30 recruits, 15 men, 15 women, all of them nervous. "I'm Staff Sergeant Brennan Cross. Some of you may have heard stories about a record, about impossible shots." She paused. "Here's what matters. Can you shoot? Can you think under pressure? Can you make the hard choices?" She walked among them. "I hold the base record for combat kills in a single deployment. 12 targets. That record means nothing compared to this. Every student I've trained in 5 years has graduated and returned home alive. That's the only record that matters." A hand raised. Young woman, maybe 22. "Staff Sergeant, is it harder for women?" Wrong question. The question is, are you willing to do the work? Merit has no gender. It has discipline, dedication, and heart. That's what I'll teach you. By graduation, all 30 passed. 15 men, 15 women, all Marines, all excellent. Her record held for 3 more years. Then one of her students broke at 13 kills in a single deployment. The student was a woman, 24 years old. When Cade heard, she smiled, called the student personally. Congratulations on the new record. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. I learned from the best. No, you became the best. That's the difference. Cade paused. Records are meant to be broken. That's how we know we're improving. I'm proud of you. Cade sat in her office looking at photos on her desk. Her wedding photo, her father and young Hawk in Fallujah, her father's journal, and beside it, a new photo. Her daughter Declan, 6 months old, already showing signs of her mother's determination. She pulled out her journal. Year 5 as instructor. My record was broken today. I couldn't be happier. My father taught me that excellence isn't about being the best forever. It's about being your best right now, and then helping others become even better. I've trained 287 snipers now. What matters is they're all Marines. They're all excellent. Declan is 6 months old. Maybe she'll be a Marine someday. Maybe not. Either way, I'll teach her what my father taught me. Excellence isn't about the records you set. It's about the path you clear for those who follow. Cade She closed the journal. Outside, the ranges echoed with rifle fire. The next generation training, learning, becoming excellent. And somewhere maybe her father was watching, proud, at peace. The war continued. It always did. But the Marines fighting it were better prepared, better trained, better led. Because excellence, real excellence, had no limits except the ones people chose to accept. And Cade Brennan Cross had spent 5 years teaching people to reject those limits. One shot at a time, one Marine at a time, one generation at a time. The work continued. The legacy grew. And in the end, that was enough.